BBC Studios Social has launched a new in-house global digital sales venture, giving advertisers the opportunity to partner directly with over 90 premium BBC Studios social channels. Partners can now align with premium content from Doctor Who to Bluey, BBC Earth to Top Gear, and many more. Captivating digital audiences with innovative, safe, award-winning social-first content, BBC Studios Social is now offering advertising, sponsorship and branded content opportunities across all of their social platforms. Create, innovate and amplify with BBC Studios Social. For more information, go to bbcstudiosocial.com.
TellyCast.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to another TellyCast. We're back in Cannes this week for the 60th MIPTV. And on this week's show, I'm joined by producers Adrian Woolfe from Studio One and Sydney Gallonde from Make It Happen Studio. I also chat with Rakuten TV boss Cedric Dufuor and Banijay's Shaun Keeble on the buzzy fast channel sector. And I also catch up with ITV Studios' Ruth Berry and RX Global's Lucy Smith with a roundup from the market. It's all coming up on this week's TellyCast.
So we're here on the beach, just off the Croisette in Cannes, which is a very salubrious surroundings, and I'm joined by Adrian Woolfe from Studio One, CEO of Studio One. Adrian, nice to see you.
Very nice to see you. Nice to be here. There's worse places to be on a Monday afternoon, aren't there?
This is very true. This is very true. The sun's out, and you can probably hear some of the waves rolling in the background. So, Adrian, what we often like to do on this show is talk a little bit to people's backgrounds, and you've got a really interesting background when it comes to the world of TV. You were originally a presenter, weren't you?
I was. I started out as a presenter on Top of the Pops, the BBC's long-running weekly music show, and I did that actually while I was doing my final year of university. So I started fairly young, and that was my first job in TV. Not a bad first job in TV at all. I was very lucky.
That's amazing. Obviously, your experience includes Celador. Many people will know you from Celador, and you were part of the original creative team that developed Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which is obviously one of those mega brands that everybody knows and loves. Tell us a little bit about your journey within Celador and the development and the work that you did on Millionaire.
So I actually joined Celador at the end of 1996, a long time ago, as head of development. So my job was actually to oversee the development of new ideas. But when I joined, there was a format that already existed, so I can take no credit for having been involved in the creation of the format itself. And that was a show called Cash Mountain that I then renamed Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And obviously it became one of the most successful shows of all time, and it was the entertainment format that really created the global format market as we know today. But back then, it actually was not an easy show to sell. And in fact, it took 3 years to get it sold to ITV. And my now business partner, and I know we'll come on to talk about Studio One, my now business partner, Claudia Rosenkrantz, was the commissioner at ITV who bought Millionaire. And so when we started, Celador was a very small company. We made 2 or 3 big primetime entertainment shows a year, primarily for the UK market. We had no international experience whatsoever. Hadn't set foot outside of the UK in terms of making shows. But on the back of the success of the first series, which you may remember was actually an overnight success. It was very unusual. It was stripped over 10 nights. It became an event in the schedule. I had actually been charged with launching it in the UK because, again, I don't know if you remember this, but the way we funded the prize fund back then was through premium rate phone lines, which it was, again, groundbreaking, had never been done before, but the budget for the show couldn't sustain the prize fund. So we had to find a way of funding that, and that was through premium rate phone lines, and I was charged with marketing it. So we had a lot of attention on that very first series, which brought in a very big audience. Marketing is one of those things that people often don't think about when it comes to shows, but it's really important now, but it was important back then too. And then on the back of that first series, I was charged with how might we commercialize this asset that we'd created, that we owned. We were very lucky. Celador owned the IP 100%. And rather than doing what most companies would do when they've got no prior experience in something, which is to license to someone who knows better. We decided not to do that. And we kept it in-house, and we started a new company called Celador International, which I grew from the ground up from its inception. And over the course of about 3 or 4 years, I built a team across different disciplines of format licensing, consumer products, marketing, digital. And we're talking, just to contextualize here, we're talking 1998, the very beginning of the internet. Mad to say, right? But the beginning of the internet, the beginning of mobile. We did everything in-house, and I had a team of about 40 people, so not huge, but from a base in London. We licensed over a number of years Millionaire into over 100 countries around the world, and I was the guardian of the brand, and it was my baby that I protected. And in fact, I think one of the things that I did, which again was very uncommon back then but has become the norm subsequently, is I treated Millionaire like a brand. I didn't just treat it like a quiz show, and I hadn't had any brand background, so I don't know where it came from, but instinctively I just knew the value in what we had created, and it was really important to me that we protected that in the way that we rolled it out internationally. As you'll have seen over the years, meant the set was the same everywhere, the logo, the music, the lighting, all those key elements, because we felt, not through any arrogance, but we had literally spent 3 years finessing this format, and we felt that it couldn't be bettered. You can change things for the sake of it, but actually that's all you're doing then, is you're changing it for the sake of it. So we had some leverage, which is very unusual for a tiny production company to have any leverage with broadcasters, but we really did because of the success of the show. And I think that's one of the things that contributed to it having the longevity that it's had over all these years, is that the way that we actually did roll it out and the way we protected it. And, that's sort of the blueprint and the model for what we're doing now.
Well, there's lots of, I think, parallels today, the importance of IP, original IP generation, and there's nobody that know much more about formats and TV formats than you. So I'm interested to talk about Studio One, your new business, or not that new, but tell us about Studio One, how it came together and the shows that you've been making up to this point.
So I founded Studio One with my business partner Claudia Rosenkrantz at the beginning of 2019. We didn't know that a global pandemic was going to be coming, down the track a year later. But we founded it because we wanted to develop and produce the next generation of non-scripted hits, and that's really what we've started to do. You haven't seen that much of what we've got in store as yet, because we did have 2.5 years of a global pandemic. But in our first year, and by the way, we started with a blank slate. So as you know, when you start, you have to develop, and these things take time. They don't happen overnight. But in our first year, we did a big special for the BBC, and we piloted a big show for Fox in the US. And during the pandemic, we continued to develop our slate. We also launched remotely a rolling entertainment news channel and broadcast 600 hours of live rolling entertainment news.
That's called Lit, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is called Lit. And I mean, that was an adventure and a half. We had 3 hosts in 3 different US cities, holed up in lockdown like the rest of the world. We built a master control room in London, and we broadcast live 3 hours a day for basically for a year, which was mad and lots of fun. But we continued to develop the Studio One slate, and I'm excited to say that now we are starting to put deals together, and we have got across the range of non-scripted, so quiz, reality, shiny floor, game. We've got 30 plus formats on the slate, and we're now starting to put some very exciting deals together.
Well, coming up to MIPTV today, and you're pitching your new slate, and you've got some quiz shows fronted by Kevin Bacon and Rob Rinder as well, which is fantastic. Tell us about those.
So Lucky 13 is our big primetime quiz that has taken me 20 years to come up with a quiz format that I think is, I hesitate before I say what I'm about to say, because I'm putting Lucky 13 into the same sentence as Millionaire. But what I thought
you might. Well, that's what we were building up to there.
But what I was about to say was that Lucky 13 has the simplicity and the elegance of Millionaire. Dare I dream that it's going to be as big? No, because that would be pretty foolish, Justin, right? But do I think it could be a quarter of Millionaire? I absolutely do. And I would take a quarter of a millionaire any day of the week. But what it has at its core a very, very simple format. And let's not forget, Millionaire, the format is 15 questions, was 3 lifelines, now 4. And that's it. 15 multiple choice questions, 3 lifelines. Lucky 13, you have to answer 13 true or false questions. Simple as that. But there's a twist. And the twist is you've got to know how many questions you've answered correctly to win big money. But it's as simple as that. And the rest comes from the execution in the way that it did with Millionaire. So I am really excited. We've just piloted Lucky 13 for a number of broadcasters internationally. And I hope that I'll be able to announce sometime very soon some deals on it.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing those. And just, going back to the format world and you mentioned the success of Millionaire in 100 plus countries. I think we've seen a decline in mega formats, haven't we, in the past few years? And only really, I suppose, the Traitors and Masked Singer have really started to sort of roll out in the same sort of way that Millionaire did. But why do you think that we've not seen that sort of international success? Obviously, we've got The Voice and various others, but do you think that success can ever be replicated again in today's market?
I think it can. I don't know why we haven't seen more formats travel in the way that Millionaire did, because the beauty of a format is you get it right in one country and you should be able to replicate it as long as you make it relevant to local cultures, local audiences. You should be able to translate that into lots and lots of countries. More difficult with reality than a more controlled format like a studio-based, very formatted show like a quiz, for example. But I actually think over the coming years that there will be more of those, because as the marketplace becomes more challenging, especially as the cost of scripted gets higher and higher, I think broadcasters around the world are going to be squeezed out of that market. And I think unscripted actually has a big opportunity for a renaissance over the next 5 or 6 years. I know obviously we're living in challenging times economically and for the advertising market, but actually I think that broadcasters will have to turn more to unscripted. And I think if you've got a format, given that there is an aversion to risk in many cases, and no one wants to go first. Everyone wants to see someone else take that risk. But if you've taken that risk and you've got a hit, I think that we will start to see an increase in formats rolling out into multiple countries.
So this is the biggest MIPTV in a few years now. What's your overall take then on the entertainment formats market? I mean, do you see the effect of the pandemic coming out there? You said, the number of formats that you developed during that time. Do you think we're going to start to see all that development work that all of those production companies and big businesses put together over those years? Do you think we're going to start seeing those really rolling out now across the world?
I think so. I mean, I went to a session this afternoon, the WITS format session, and it was interesting. There were some interesting ideas there. And obviously, it's going to be those that succeed, that rise to the top and that will roll out into most countries. But I was actually encouraged by some of the formats that have come from markets that we don't normally or haven't historically seen them originate from. It used to be that, it was the US or it was the UK in particular, or perhaps the Netherlands and maybe Sweden.
Maybe Israel once or twice as well.
Over the last 10, 15 years, absolutely Israel, but more recently South Korea, because that's where the Masked Singer came from. But there were other countries that actually didn't get a look in. And I think now what we're going to see is more of a democratization. I don't think it matters where a format originates. If it works and you can show the ratings, then I think that format has a chance of being seen to audiences all over the world.
All right. Well, thank you very much indeed for your time, Adrian. It's been great to chat with you in this such a nice environment as well. So
likewise.
I wish you all the best for the market, and we'll be keeping our eyes open for your new deals being announced in a few weeks.
Thanks, Justin. Great to talk to you.
So our next guest on this week's MIPTV special show is Sydney Gallonde, creative and executive producer at Make It Happen Studios. Sydney, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be the guest for this show today.
Let's start a little bit about your background and how you got into the TV industry, because I think it was branded entertainment you did a lot of work in. But take us back to the beginning and the development of your career.
Oh my God, I'm the luckiest guy of the world. Long story short, I started in this industry in 2003. I was 20 years old. I'm a former military because my goal is just to save my life, and because we were a very poor family, I decided to do everything to become a foreign legionnaire. And when I understood that I would kill people, I decided to quit.
A foreign legionnaire?
Yes. And I moved to Paris because I come from Paris. Originally, I was born in Paris, but I had a very big trouble with my family. My father tried to kill me, and we have been hiding in south of France, in Toulouse. And 20 years after, I came back to Paris as a receptionist for Canal+. And I started in this industry as a receptionist for Canal+. And 5 years after, I became a producer. And during this 2003 to 2008, I did a lot of things. Real TV, clip, musical clip. I did advertising, but in each role, I have been an assistant, I have been a PA, I have been a casting director, managing director, and at the end I landed as the writer, and after I became a producer. So just to explain a little bit about this, when you have nothing, every single experience will be positive. And when I arrived in Paris, I met a very famous host called Emmanuel Shaun. And this guy was looking for someone to do to introduce people. And I said, I'm the good guy because I'm a good talker. And he said, okay, let's do it. And when you are a receptionist, every people who try to call the company go through you. So you can understand very quickly how the business works. And I said, okay, how can I use this? And I use this to make myself become bigger and bigger, because I said, oh my God, it's like a dream. I can do this job and people will pay me to dream. I have to do everything to be part of this industry. So I work for a big company like Avas, like Fuse Omnicom, and I land in a group that everybody knows now called Media One. But before it was Media One, it was AB Group. AB Group is Azoulay Berda. In 1919, they have done all the TF1 editorial line, and me, I start as a trainee inside them. And 6 months later, they hire me as an assistant. I signed my first advertising with them, and I did it. It works well. It was for France Télévisions, and it was for the water industry. We have billboard the news for France Télévisions, and after this, people say, "Oh my God, he knows the game." But I understood that people trust only talent. And just to be a good talker is not a talent. So I tried to become a writer. So I wrote a lot of things, and I tried to send a project to TF1. And TF1 answered back and say, why not? Let's have a meeting. But it was new for me. I was 23 years old. And so I set up an appointment with a drama producer inside AB Group called Jean-Pierre Dufuor. And he said, let's do the meeting together. And when we did the meeting, it was someone that the market know, Takis Candilis. And Takis Candilis said, oh, okay, why not? We can do this project. So they put an option on the project. And so Tetra Media Studio, which is, again, a big company in the French drama industry, and AB Group, they hire me as a writer. I did this for 6 months. And after this, the project fell apart. But the producer, Jean-Pierre Dufuor, said, I love the way you are working and you are creating projects. And so at this period of time, Channel 6, M6 in France, a very famous host called Valérie Damido were looking for a drama series. She was doing factual, not non-factual. And now the channel asked to Jean-Pierre Dufuor, who are looking for a project for her because she wants to be an actress. So I wrote something, and Channel 6 said, oh my God, it's exactly what we want. And I signed this project. It was on 2008. And my producer said, you will produce it. I produce it, and it has been a hit for Channel 6. And my producer life starts with this very old-fashioned project, but very good project. Just to explain a little bit about this project, the title of the project was Victoire Bono. This woman was a social assistant, and she was helping kids to grow up and to avoid, to get off from the family. It was part of my life.
So your story is sort of mirrored your story.
And it was 1 hour returning episode. So we did 6 episodes per year. I did it for 3 years. So I was 28 years old. And after, I asked myself, is it exactly what you want to do? I was so happy and proud to be a producer. But I love to say, we know more than a viewer what you want to watch. But me, it is not exactly what I would love to watch. So I decided to try to do something that I deeply believe that it is the next move for me as a producer, as a drama producer. And I was a big fan of Guillaume Canet and also Harlan Coben.
They're big, well-known French writers and French authors.
Guillaume Canet is a director, actor, writer. He is the one who did Tell No One, the big success adapted from an American writer called Harlan Coben, but theatrical movie. It was for the theatrical movie. But at this moment of time, we were 12 years later. And I asked to myself, nobody did anything with this IP. So I struggled myself to meet Harlan Coben. But he is a very well-known writer, novelist. And also, my English was inexistent. So I did everything to have his contacts. And when I found his contact, I wrote a treatment about an adaptation of one of his titles. And I decided to send it to him and to go directly to TF1 and to say, you know what? I know Harlan Coben and he is okay to set up a drama series with me. And they say, are you sure he's okay, Sydney? Okay. If you are not a liar, set up a meeting. And if Harlan Coben in front of us say, I am okay to do a French drama series based on my novel, we will follow you. And I said, when you want to meet him? I never met him. And they say, we are producing Taxi Brooklyn in New York in a few months. So organize a dinner. And if Harlan Coben say yes, we will follow you. So as you understand, I had 2 months to set up these meetings. I hired a teacher just to learn exactly what I have to say to Harlan Coben because I was convinced that he would accept to meet me. Harlan Coben is living in the Dakota building in front of the Central Park.
Well, the famous Lennon building, right?
Exactly. It's a long story, but he said yes to meet me. It was my first time in New York. I take a ticket, I travel to New York, but he wasn't aware that I will ask him to sell his rights. When the meeting happened, I said, okay, I have to tell you the truth. My English is inexistent, but I learned what I have to say to you today. He laughed. And he said, okay, so tell me, why are you here? And I say, I'm here to buy your rights. And he laughed, and I said, why are you laughing? Please listen to me. He take his time, and he listened to me. And I said, okay, I'm not here to give you money. And he said, but you have to buy the rights. And I said, yes, but 12 years after Guillaume Canet, nothing happened. And all the Hollywood producers bet on you and pay an option to set up something and nothing happened. Me, I'm not here to give you money. I'm here to set up a drama series. And he said, are you pretentious, Sydney? And I said, no, I'm not pretentious. So how are you so sure you will succeed where all the Hollywood producers fade? And I said, because we have a meeting in 3 days with TF1 and I already said, you are okay. And if you say yes today, we can do it. And he said, are you crazy? Now he is the godfather of my daughter. And he said yes, and we set up this dinner. TF1 was impressed because they understood my English is inexistent. I called a French writer who is perfectly fluent bilingual writers, and I told her, could you please come in New York with me and do this dinner? When the dinner happened, Harlan said, you know guys, I'm here for Sydney Gallonde. So if you gave him enough money to do this production, I will do it, but you have 1 year. And when he gave us the right, he told me, you know what, Sydney? Take the right, go back to France and make it happen. That's why my company calls Make It Happen Studio. And the project has been the hit for TF1 for 10 years. So this project changed my life. It was with Alexandra Lamy, which is the ex-wife of Jean Dujardin. At the same moment when Jean Dujardin won the Oscar, Alexandra Lamy was her wife. And so this actress made a lot of noise due to Jean Dujardin, and it was a big success on TF1. After this, Netflix came to us and said, we want to do an overhaul deal with Harlan Coben. So we signed an overhaul deal. So, as you understand, I was 20 years old. When I did it, I was 30 years old. And life was just a gift for me. So, I'm a dreamer, but I never expect to dream so high. So after this, I have so many things to say. But everything starts with Harlan Coben.
What a fantastic story. That's very inspirational, Sydney, I have to say. So tell me about what other projects you've been doing at Make It Happen, because that's an inspirational story for anybody in the TV industry. And I think that not only you've had that success with TF1, but you've had a lot of success with MGM TV as well and projects with them. Tell us about those.
It is the next step. Due to Harlan Coben, MGM boss, Rolla Bauer, was the ex-boss of Studio Canal. And when she heard about my story about Harlan Coben, she wants me to introduce her to Harlan Coben, and she did with Red in UK. She did the second Harlan Coben adaptation, right. And it has been a success with Nicola Schindler. And after, they hire Rolla Bauer, head of MGM. And so all those years after, she came back to me and said, "Okay, Sine, now it's time to tag and to do things together." I spent 10 years in this company called AB Group, so Azoulay, JLA Production. But after my success with Harlan Coben, I decided to become an indie producer. So a financial partner called Natixis, they came to me and say, "Okay, we bet on you, we give you the money just to become an independent producer. But the goal is you have selected an American writer to do a success here in France. Now you have to export our French talent and do international project." Due to Harlan Coben, I speak English, so it was doable. But I know I'm well known in France, but I'm nobody in the global market. But with MGM on my side, I could be somewhere. So with Rolla Bauer, we decided to tag and to do a first look deal agreement. And we did two different shows. One show is based on a very famous French writer called Guillaume Musso. And he is the #1 best-selling writer in France. All his novels are sold in 52 countries, and he sold maybe 1.2 million copies per novel, so it's very successful. And with MGM, we did it for ITV-X, for ITV in UK, for RAI, ZDF, France Télévisions, and it has been released last September, and the title is The Réunion. The French title is La Jeune Fille et la Nuit. After this novel, I was developing a project with Zanthropa called Last Light, with Nantes and TF1, and MGM said, Sydney, where are you with this project? I was in the middle of a nightmare, because I had 1 million gap on this project, and also I was looking for the lead actor. MGM said, okay, if we did a buyout of this project, we can struggle to make this project an American project and find a home in the US. I sold the project to them, and so they brought a showrunner, they brought NBC Peacock, and we did it with Matthew Fox. It was the first time that Matthew Fox came back after Lost, the drama series Lost, and we did also with Joe Frogart, so with an amazing casting. It was my first English-speaking series, but not as the delegate producer. For this time as an executive producer and a non-writing executive producer. And this project is currently on Amazon, on Peacock, on Nantes, on NBC in the Middle East. It is a project about the theory of domino theory. Because European, we are oil dependent. And we were talking about the fact that if something happened with oil, all the energy and all the supplies could collapse. And so the story is about a family who has been separated because when this event starts, some of the member was in different territory, and the first decision was to close the border and to say now we have to stop all things we are using oil. So it's a ecological thriller. So with The Réunion and Last Light, it was my first two pan-European production. Thanks to this, MGM, in the middle of our discussion, has been bought by Amazon. So now my relation is not only with MGM, is with Amazon. And so we have announced last MIPCOM one of the projects we are developing called Eugène Bullard. And Eugène Bullard, it's a real story about the first black fly fighter who were son of a slave, who have fought for World War I, who have set up the jazz club in Montmartre in France, and also fight for World War II, and has been decorated of the War Cross, and also became French. And Charles de Gaulle said, this guy is a real American French fighter. And it's a big biopic that we are currently developing with Amazon and MGM.
Wow, how exciting. Now, you're one of the very few black drama producers in France. And what do you think more can be done? Because your story is amazing. What else do you think that French industry, and in fact the international drama industry, can do to bring in more diverse talent?
as I said, I start as a trainee. We have to open our industry, to new talent, but diverse talent. We have to force us just to allow different point of view, different, origin of talent. Because the thing is, as me, for example, I was thinking that it is not allowed for me to be part of this industry. And that's why I'm so happy that you asked me this question and you're interviewing me, because I want to say everything is doable, even if you are black, even if you are Chinese, even if you are from Middle East. The only thing is work, train, and be good. The thing is, but we have to open the door. So even if we have to force, some of the producer or broadcaster to have a part of their production with, diversity, let's do it. But I think it is the only solution. It is like for the equity for women on screen, women directing. I think it is the same thing for diversity. It's not because we want them to have more chance than the other. It's because it's already less. There is less chance. So we have to show that we want, because it's positive for the industry, because we want to represent all of the viewers, and there is very good idea from this kind of talent. So that's, I think the only solution is just to, by law, to say you have to have a piece of your order coming from diversity talent, or you have to tag with professional, experimented producer talent, and you have to tell them to attract, talent from diversity.
One of the other projects that you're involved with, which I'm really excited about because I'm a Leeds United fan, all my life. And this is a project that features Eric Cantona. So tell us about that one.
The title is Colossus. Colossus, because I'm a rugby player too. And one of my captain, when we were young, has been abused during his 6 years old to his 12 years old by the husband of his cousin. And the subject is about, even if you are a colossus, this kind of thing can happen. And usually it's happened in the family. And Eric Cantona is playing my friend. And it's because my friend wrote a novel about, and he set up an association just to help kids to have a free talk about the fact that you are not a victim. You are a survivor, and now the fear has to change board. And the subject of Eric Cantona, first of all, Eric Cantona is known all around the world as a tough guy. And even if he is a tough guy, he could be a victim or a survivor. So the subject is about this. So we see Eric Cantona to be face of someone who make him remember himself when he was a kid. And the kids in front of him said, "You want me to talk? Have you talked?" And Eric Cantona said, "No, I never talked. If you talk, I talk." So he decided to accuse the husband of his cousin. And so the kids say, "Okay, I will talk." And so the subject is how, even if it's 30 years after, it's important just to help people to have a free talk and to understand that they are survivor. There is no shame to say, "I have been abused." The shame is the guy who abused you. It's a 1-hour film movie for TV, for TF1, and it will be released on May 4th. It's super important for me because first, it's a true story about one of my friends, and secondly, if one or two kids in front of his TV can talk to his family or to someone about something who happened to him, I would have done my job.
Good luck with that. It's currently going around various festivals, isn't it? I think.
Yes, a lot of festivals, and also we have a screening with the government. Each time when we do a screening, we have some people who decide to talk to us. So we have done our job. But most of everything, why Eric Cantona is part of it? Because me, I don't know him. I'm a rugby player, not a soccer player. But I just tell him why I am doing this project. And Eric Cantona have a big heart, and he say, "Okay, I don't care about the script. Just because of the subject, I want to be part." And when he read the script, he said, "Oh my God, it's a good script also."
Fantastic. Just finally, Sydney, because I know you're extremely busy here, but you're here for Cannes Series, aren't you?
Yes. Albin Levy set up something very interesting called Cannes Series Connection. So he's inviting a bunch of producer, distributor in the same room for 2 days. and we are doing some round table, and we talk about the industry. The goal is just to set up a bridge between all the producers all around the world. So during Cannes series, we are doing screenings, we are talking about the evolution of our industry and also about France. Because we want people to know, even if we are late in France, late is good, because so many things can be done. So we are presenting our way of working, our law, and also our skills, because a lot of French talents now are keen to work for the global audience. And thanks to Cannes series, for me it is my third session. There is so many projects who has been created through those meetings. I think it's a very good way to be different than Cerimania. Because Cerimania, you are here just to have a sort of competition and to hear some broadcaster, but here you are part of the event. So that's a new way of doing a festival, I think.
All right. Well, Sydney, thank you for being so generous with your time. I think Make It Happen Studio is certainly a business to watch on the international stage in the coming years. I wish you all the very best of success. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And if I can say a last word, thanks to Harlan Coben to have said yes.
That's a good note to finish on. Thank you, Sydney.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So my next guest on this week's MIPTV special show is Cedric Dufuor, CEO and President of Rakuten TV. Cedric, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm doing that whole running up and down the Croisette to hotels and meetings in the Palais. So it's that kind of buzz that you get, which is always good fun about MIPTV. You've just arrived, right?
Yeah, I've just arrived. It's the very beginning for me.
Right, okay. But I know you've got a packed seminar schedule, you're speaking at the Fast and Global Summit, and lots of other things as well. So what I'm really interested in, and I think our audience will be as well, is just to get an understanding of Rakuten TV's origins. It's obviously one of the foremost digital streaming platforms that's available through TVOD and AVOD and SVOD in Spain, I know you have. But tell us a little bit about how the business developed and how it's grown and evolved.
So we started 12 years ago in Spain with a very small TVOD service just for Spain. And now we have a TVOD, AVOD, and FAST service across 43 countries in Europe. And during this journey, our objective has always been to adapt our offer to the evolution of the trends, of the usage, of the needs of our users. So that's why we started with TVOD a long time ago. Then, as you mentioned, we launched a SVOD service mainly in Spain. And because of the new trend of AVOD and FAST since 2019, we decided to launch this very quickly. We are still a small company, so very agile and very flexible. So in 6 months, we decided to launch AVOD and FAST business. We were quite pioneer in Europe at that moment. And now we are present in these 43 countries with more than 500 FAST channels across the countries, with 100 owned and operated channels.
Okay, and they are specifically programmed for each different territory?
Absolutely. We have, I would say, half. 50% of the content is global content and 50% is localized. That means in the language of the country, with also content of the country, with French movie in France. And that's why we need to have, not in the 43 countries, but I would say in top 15, we have local people in each country to make sure that, to feel the trend of the country, and also to make sure that we have the relevant content in each country.
Yeah, I'd like to return to that in a second because I think original programming and original commissioning of content is a really interesting future perhaps for fast space. But in the meantime, tell us a little bit about your channel distribution. What's the strategy of your channel distribution up to this point, and where are you going next with getting Rakuten TV in front of consumers?
So first of all, the DNA of Rakuten TV is cinema. It was our claim was cinema at home when we launched this service 12 years ago. So the main channel we distribute ourselves are a cinema channel with different genres. So we have Rakuten TV drama, we have Rakuten TV family, romance, etc., etc. We have also documentaries, sport documentaries, and mainly with Rakuten Originals. And we can announce today that last week we launched series channel also, and it is the first time we entered in this world of series channel. We launched a real series in UK last week with reality shows, TV reality shows in UK and very famous ones. And we also launched crime series in several countries in Europe. So with a different approach compared to what we used to do at Rakuten. So this is our own and operated channel, and we are also distributing other channels like BBC, like Euronews, like The Guardian and other channels. But these are third-party channels. So the idea in each country is to have a mix between own and operated channel and also third-party channels to make sure that the content we provide match the needs of our users.
Thinking about FAST specifically, it's on everybody's lips at the moment in the industry, and that's why MIPTV has got a FAST and Global Summit dedicated to this fast-growing area of content distribution. We've obviously seen the US having the lion's share of success because of the way that the US market is organized. Essentially, cord cutting is coming through and lots of budget pressures when it comes to cost of living crisis, etc. How do you see the FAST market developing in other territories around the world? Because obviously there's a lot more free TV.
Yes, and with quality content also in this free TV, so it's difficult to compete with our fast market. But first of all, you're right. I think that we are feeling the same impression than in the US with this fatigue of people having too many subscriptions and paying too much. So this is the first, even if it's less obvious than in the US, it's coming progressively in Europe. The second topic is that because of the increase of cost of living and inflation, having free content is something more and more important. And the good thing is that the studios also allow us to have better and better content available on the AVOD and FAST section. There is more audience because the content we are showing is qualitative content, which was maybe not the case 4 years ago when we started with AVOD. But now I think that everybody understands that it's a sustainable model. We can monetize it. So there is good content. The audience is growing. The advertisers understand also that it's a good way to target their audience. So there is a way to monetize, to pay the studio, and then it's the virtual circle we are progressively building. So I think that it will keep on growing in the coming years.
And how are you finding the dual challenge of a cost of living crisis, but also advertising downturn when it comes to the whole media industry as a whole? Because that is a major challenge to everybody, right?
Yes. We are quite lucky because the digital TV inventory is quite popular and the advertisers are keen to invest on this and to transfer part of their budget from traditional TV to connected TV. First of all, because it allows them to reach some people that they cannot reach in traditional TV because they don't watch traditional TV anymore, especially the young people. And also because the way advertising is perceived in connected TV is better perceived than in traditional TV. Because it's
more addressable, essentially.
It's more addressable, more targeted, because we get data that we can use to make sure that the advertising is targeted. So it's good for the users because it's better perceived by the users. It's good also for the advertisers because they are sure that the advertising be relevant. And it's good also for us because we can better monetize this inventory compared to traditional TV. So even if there is this threat on the global ad business, I think that the connected TV part is still growing.
We've seen recently lots of big distribution companies launching their own fast channels, like Fremantle. I think they've got over 100, and Banijay moving very much into that space. So how do you differentiate yourself? Because there are so much content out there for free. And, you know, your brand has been established for a number of years. How do you differentiate yourself? And how do you build that relationship with consumers? Because you're in a direct-to-consumer business as opposed to B2B. Well, you're in the B2B business as well, but you also have that direct-to-consumer is a key part of your marketing.
So that's a very important topic, and I think it will be even more important in the coming years, where we will see profusion of content, probably too much content, too many channels. We really need to find a differentiation compared to others. So first of all, our first differentiation at Rakuten TV is that our AVOD and FAST offer is just part of our value proposition, because we also had this TVOD value proposition. for our users. So our promise is to tell to our users that you can stay on our platform, on the same platform, and one day you can watch the latest Avatar, which was released last week, and the day after, a free movie that you're going to watch with your kids, for example. So it's just part of our value proposition. And the other differentiation is that for us, what is really key is the quality of the content. And we want to make sure that the way we build our channel is to have qualitative content and curated content. In the main countries, I would say Euro 5, we have around 100 channels, not more, because we think that obviously we could have more channels. It's quite easy to be connected to more channels. But it wouldn't make sense because it's too difficult for the users to find what they want to watch. So we insist a lot on the quality of the content. And we really want that people go to Rakuten TV because they trust us, because they trust the brand. If they know that a Rakuten TV branded channel is trustworthy and they will see qualitative content, if they know that the channel we are distributing on our app is the good quality, then they will come to us and not to any other. So it's our main challenge, is building this trust with our users.
Building your brand, and that's something that you did very successfully in Spain, because am I right in thinking that you sponsored Barcelona at one point?
Yeah. We sponsored Barcelona during 5 years. We are still sponsored in other countries of sports, which is really part of the DNA of Rakuten. We are sponsors of the Golden State Warriors, the NBA team of San Francisco. We are sponsors of the Davis Cup, also in tennis. So that helped us a lot for the brand awareness. And then our challenge is, okay, once the brand is known, then we need to explain what is behind Rakuten and the real value proposition. So that's our task, to increase the conversion and the usage of our platform.
Well, the Premier League have just banned a lot of gambling companies from sponsoring shirts in a few years' time. So maybe there's an opportunity there for you in the future to build your brand in the UK.
Yes, maybe. And because of our recent sponsorship, we are very often approached by team to build something. So when we started the sponsorship with FC Barcelona, it was in 2017, I think. We were quite new in Europe, so it was really important for the brand awareness. I would say that right now, our main challenge is the understanding of the brand more than the brand awareness. The way we grew our user base at Rakuten TV, apart from this brand awareness and growing brand awareness, was to partner with manufacturers, with TV manufacturers, and having a Rakuten TV branded button on almost all the remote control. We did this with LG, with Samsung, iSense, and almost all the TV manufacturers. And that's the way now we can reach 140 million households in Europe, in the 43 countries in Europe, is with having this button on their remote control or having our app on the homepage of their TV interface.
Thinking we're here at MIPTV, lots of buying and selling, lots of deal making going on. If we're thinking about, again, differentiating your proposition going forward and making content addressable to each particular territory, does that lead you in the future to commissioning original content specifically for Rakuten in certain territories, do you think? I mean, are producers going to be pitching to you in the near future to make original content?
That's not something we are doing right now, but we are considering this. We've been approached recently by producers to do so. Our main strength, I would say, in the past, and the idea is to continue in the future, is to adapt ourselves very quickly to the evolution of the market. We've been here for 12 years, which is quite long in this industry. So we have very strong relationship with the studios, very strong relationship with TV manufacturers. We are credible also when we talk with producers. So we have different discussion in order to find what will be the model we will build in the coming years.
Yeah, because I suppose it's going to be churn, isn't it? It's about addressing churn, and if you have appointment to view TV, much in the same way that traditional linear channels are keen to have, that's again going to be potentially differentiating factor. And we've seen Roku doing that, moving into original content. So maybe that's something that's possible in the future.
We are producing our own original content, mainly sport documentaries. So sport, because of what I was saying just before is that because of being part of our DNA, and documentary because it's a format which is quite efficient with sport. We started with Match Day, which was a documentary around the FC Barcelona team. We did then another documentary with Andrés Iniesta, La Roja, also the football team, the Spanish football team. So at the beginning it was mainly documentary and sport. Now the editorial line is much wider. The idea is to match Rakuten values. We are a Japanese group, so the notion of value is really important. Our values are optimism, which Rakuten means optimism in English. So our values are optimism, innovation, empowerment, diversity, and we make sure that our own productions match these values. The reason why we do these Rakuten Originals, we don't have the same approach than other platforms which acquire users through originals. In our strategy, the way we acquire users is through this partnership with manufacturers. So for us, the Rakuten Originals, we will expand it because we found the business model behind it. The idea is to break even, not to lose money in a production. And because these productions are available in our AVOD section, the only revenue we get is the revenue coming from advertising, which is not enough to cover the production cost. That's why very often we associate a brand to this production, and the brand is the sponsor of the production.
Okay, so it's brand-funded content.
It's brand-funded content, which is very good for the brand because it's a singular way for them to communicate, very complementary to their ads, their 30 seconds ad that they put on TV. Recently, the last 5 titles we've produced were always associated with a brand who fund the title. And now sometimes the brand even come to us to say, we want to do something with you. We don't know what. Let's co-build something, a production around our story or our business model. So sometimes it's us reaching out to the brand to fund the title, and sometimes it's the initiative of the brand starting from scratch, and this leads to very interesting production.
Yeah, and you're seeing brand-funded programming essentially becoming more and more important for you in the future?
Yes, it's more and more important. We are known for that from the brand. So we have more and more brands coming to us to try to fund this production. And because it's a new model and we've proved that it works, that it's profitable, both for the brand and for us, we have many projects now, and not only about sport, about many other topics.
Cedric, I know you're going to be really busy these next few days, so I'll let you go. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure also.
So my next guest on this week's show is Shaun Keeble, VP of Digital at Banijay. Right, Shaun, nice to see you.
Hi, Justin. How are you?
I'm all right. It's a beautiful day, one of those lovely Cannes afternoons. You know, the sun's out. Tell us a little bit about your role at Banijay Rights, because it's a relatively new role, isn't it, for the business? But tell us about what you do at Banijay.
Yeah, of course, Justin. So again, my name's Shaun Keeble. I'm Vice President of Digital Distribution for Banijay Rights. So I oversee all of our digital self-publishing commercial activities, which span across a number of different platforms, but particularly AVOD and SVOD self-publishing, as well as social media monetization. I head up our content protection division, but also more recently, we've launched our FAST channels, and I'm heading up all of the programming, curation, and commercial strategy for that too.
We know there's many juggernauts that Banijay has in its portfolio, but talk us through your FAST channels specifically.
Globally, we have 22 unique FAST channels live currently, and they have been syndicated over 110 times. So what we've currently got in the portfolio is a mixture of both single IP-led FAST channels and also aggregate-based channels. I would say 75% of our FAST channels are single IP-led, and they're really focusing on our non-scripted, long-running game shows or reality shows. So very rich formats including Deal or No Deal, Survivor, The Biggest Loser, Fear Factor, and such. So we've got 22 unique FAST channels globally currently across the major platforms and territories. So the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and also across Germany and Latin America.
We're seeing FAST obviously being adopted really, really quickly in the US. And this is something I was speaking with Cedric from Rakuten earlier on. How do you see the FAST business expanding into Europe and the rest of the world? Where do you see the biggest opportunity?
Well, I think absolutely I echo Cedric's point of the US and North America being a key market for FAST currently. I think that's really to do with hardware penetration, as well as also cord cutting, and of course the advertising maturity of the market, allowing for good returns on investment. But I think here in Europe, we have key focuses on the United Kingdom, the UK, and also Germany as a key focus on FAST. And I think as well, whilst the footprint is evolving and developing, I think being led by some of the more public broadcasters launching fast channels across their own services, so ITV, for example, here in the UK, launching channels on ITVX, I think it's becoming more accessible to a consumer, but I think there's also a bit of a brand awareness piece for the consumers to understand the fast model and obviously where and how they can consume.
So you launched a channel called Horizons relatively recently. Tell us a bit about that and what kind of content features and why that's different.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this really goes into the play of launching aggregate-based fast channels. So with the catalogue now spanning over 160,000 hours of content, we're starting to really delve into, outside of single IP, what would be next for us, what would make a most perfect sense in terms of evolution. So we launched Horizons, and we strapped that also powered by Banijay as a way to also get the brand recognition in direct-to-consumer space. But for us, Horizons is a place for our UK entertainment catalogue, and it really is leveraging some of those flagship IP, including Location, 8 out of 10 Cats, Benidorm, Mr. Bean. And for us, it's a great opportunity to curate that content in a more traditional fashion in terms of traditional linear playout. We're scheduling on the clock, we are day parting, and we're really looking at ways to leverage content in a marketable way as well with the platform. So we're really trying to drive in tune-in, but also at the same time keep to the mantra of having a lean back viewing experience. So ensuring content, of course, is programmed accordingly in terms of day parts, but also in terms of the data collected as well.
How does advertising work on that channel? Do you have your own ad sales team?
No, not currently. Banijay Rights or Banijay do not have an ad sales team, so we're currently depending on platforms or facilitators to sell the advertising around the content.
Data is one of the key, I suppose, benefits of launching a fast channel, and I'm interested to know the data that you're seeing. I mean, obviously it's still relatively early days for Horizons, but obviously the rest of the portfolio that you have of fast channels. What's the data telling you, and how is that informing how you move forward as a business? Because presumably you can use that data not only for development of what's working particularly well with consumers in particular territories, but also potentially sales on the linear side as well. Tell us about how you're utilising it.
Again, I think from a perspective of distribution, we really see FAST as an incremental distribution avenue, but we do recognise that there is valuable data given back by those platforms that allow. So of course, when we're thinking about FAST, there is a big topic around CDN usage and who is retaining CDN.
Tell us what CDN is, just for those who don't know.
Of course, so that really is to do with the streaming data being collected. So it could be controlled by a platform, it could be controlled by a facilitator, it could be controlled by the content operator itself. And that's really going to allow you to tap into the audience data. It will also give you the viewership of hours and minutes data across your channels and across the portfolio. So for that content and those channels where we do retain that data, of course, we're using that not only for programming decision-making, but also from a commercial decision-making perspective as well. So data, of course, is very key to us. And I think when we're thinking about, obviously, wider decision-making and commercial proposals, of course, our hope here is, and our view is, FAST is incremental. It's driving potentially new awareness to a format that may not be currently in commission. So what we might want to do there is, of course, give that information to our local sales team. But again, this goes back to the point of when we're thinking about our fast channel curation, we're doing that alongside our local sales teams in market. So leveraging the content that we know has already, had a really good run, either the first or second window.
Now, going direct to consumer with a channel like Horizons and of course all your others as well, that's a new skill set, isn't it, for a distribution business that's traditionally focused on business to business. Now you're in direct to consumer market. How are you going to stand out from the crowd? Because we've seen so many fast channels being launched on almost a daily basis. How are you going to differentiate yourself to the others, and how are you going to let consumers know about it?
Our belief is, again, content will lead that conversation, and we're really hoping to cut through with our rich IP that we're focusing on. I think with Horizons, again, that is a content-driven channel where any marketing opportunity will really focus around those key tentpole programming highlights that we're creating, and also leveraging our social media bases too. So having a footprint on those social media platforms with either dedicated single IP social media pages or, using our owned and operated pages to cross-promote is something that I think is very key and important for those entering the fast space. It's working with the platforms on an on-platform basis to work out if there's any marketing synergies that could be made to get your channel recognized higher in an EPG or on a home screen on the platform, but also leveraging any off-platform owned and operated social media platform or presences that you may have as a company.
You were also talking on the Fast and Global Summit here at MIPTV. Tell us about what your panel discussion was about. What were the key insights for people who didn't make it?
Of course. So I joined the stage with Jennifer Batty from Samsung TV Plus, and the key focus was around content and curation. And I think across the fast space, again, as you mentioned, Justin, there is an influx of fast channels which are really hitting the market on almost a daily basis. So it's, I think, our views were how to stand out, how to cut through, and also what's next. And it could be the question of currently commercial models are really based upon non-exclusivity and syndication, which for a content distributor like ourselves, it's certainly something that we have to bear in mind in terms of return on investment, because of course we'll be wearing costs to launch these fast channels. But there is certainly the question of, from a platform perspective, is it now time to start thinking more about exclusivity? And if there is exclusivity, what does that look like in terms of either curation of channels, channel offerings, or even original content? But again, from our view, those commercial models would have to reflect either by way of license fees or different funding models.
The next question is obviously original content. Do you see a time when you'll be creating Horizon Originals, for example?
I think it's certainly something to discuss further, and again, where it makes commercial sense. I think with the depth of the catalogue, of course, we can continue offering programming using the finished tape, but whether there's a conversation around original content or exclusive content to amplify or to highlight or complement an existing fast channel is certainly something that could be explored, at a future stage.
We're seeing lots of broadcast as well going into creating social video exclusive content as well, and building in channels and channel brands in that. Is that something, we're talking about fast now, but is that something that is under your remit as well, developing original content for social perhaps in the future?
I think certainly as a distributor, we continue to manage all of our social media pages, but in those sort of conversations, it could be production led and obviously a decision made about what makes the most commercial sense. Yeah.
Okay. Shaun, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great to chat with you. It's a fascinating topic and the hot topic, I think, at this MIPTV. Good luck with Horizon and everything else that you've got under the Banijay stable. So all the best. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much, Justin. Most appreciated.
So I'm here with Ruth Berry from ITV Studios. We're just off stage for Ruth's Media Mastermind keynote session, which was really fascinating. So it'd be great to catch up on a few of the things you were discussing, Ruth. First of all, congratulations on your new role. Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, thank you very much. So absolutely. I think so. What we've done is brought together the formats and the finished programming businesses to create a singular sort of multi-genre, multi-brand and multi-dimensional sort of commercial powerhouse really at the heart of the studios business. Be that deficiting huge dramas, licensing rights for those dramas, rolling out new format brands like My Mum, Your Dad, Scared of the Dark, merchandising Schitt's Creek, selling Love Island water bottles, delivering The Voice YouTube channels, Come Dine With Me fast channels, Health Kitchen in the metaverse, natural history business. I mean, it really is. I think my role is to absolutely try and get my arms around all of that and think about how we drive commercial success across that portfolio in a more wholehearted way. And I think not only that from an internal internal perspective, but then externally, really a lot of the thought process behind that is how we can face our clients in a better way. And I think, the market's changed quite a lot in the last few years. We've got huge amount of consolidation, so there are fewer buyers in the market. Those are bigger buyers, and I think they're buying across our portfolio. So bringing us into one place to have that conversation, I think to be that one-stop shop, as it were, that it can provide, your brilliant formats, and whether that's something that is aimed at younger audiences, older audiences, reality, is a game, quiz, or your, high-end scripted formats, natural history, factual programming, all in one place to be able to serve the clients in that way, I think is really, really important. Effectively, we can help fulfill their programming needs in one hit. So that's my aim in many ways.
It's a big remit, and obviously a really exciting one. And in your role, you're overseeing some of the biggest TV formats in the world. Love Island, there's been over 27 adaptations of that, I believe. The Voice, over 70 of The Voice. Come Dine With Me, and I've got a note down here, over 17,000 episodes worldwide. I'm a Celebrity, Hell's Kitchen, the list goes on. Where are you going to take those brands next?
Yeah, good question. And I think, having huge juggernauts like that is a blessing and a curse, right? Because they're phenomenal shows and they keep growing and growing and growing, but you've got to keep growing them. And I think what we've been really successful at is doing that. Like you mentioned The Voice and over 70 versions, and there are more, and I think we keep going. We've just added The Voice Generations. The Voice is currently on air on NBC in the US and doing extremely well. They still punch through our shows. I'm a Celebrity season 9 has just launched in Australia with a launch to over a million viewers, plus phenomenal numbers on BVOD, which is becoming an increasingly important measure of success for our buyers, as I'm sure you're aware. And I think that was a 76% increase on the launch last year. So I think it's about having those great brands, but also about making sure that they are still living, breathing and growing across the world is really, really important. And then, of course, in addition to that, is bringing the new brands through and having that level of creative renewal, which, is absolutely a key focus for us. I think the third layer on top is how we extend those brands. So, you take The Voice, for example. When that first started, and we're in cycle 23 in the US now, we've been going for years. There wasn't a metaverse. Social media was sort of probably in its infancy. So how we reach broader audiences, how we get our shows out to new audiences, particularly younger ones who aren't looking at EPGs, that aren't reading Radio Times and seeing what they're going to watch, is how we extend those brands into social media. We've created a metaverse world for The Voice, which is really exciting. You can do a Bush Tucker trial in I'm a Celebrity on Fortnite. I think Hell's Kitchen's gone into the Sandbox metaverse, and I think we're looking at how we extend these brands to where our audiences are to keep them live and kicking.
Now, you mentioned one of the new formats, Scared of the Dark, and we saw a clip of it in your Media Mastermind session. Tell us a bit about that. That's just launched in the UK, hasn't it? And you're starting to hopefully roll that out internationally.
Yeah, absolutely. So it launched on Channel 4. So it was created and produced by Multi-Story Media, who's an ITV Studios label in the UK. And it's just genius. I'm so excited about it because it looks and feels so unique in many ways. So essentially, they've taken a group of celebrities and put them into a pitch black bunker where they can't even see their hands in front of their face. They live, sleep, eat, perform challenges within that space. And it's fascinating because not only is it a psychological challenge to live in the dark, which, I don't think anyone actually has been documented to living in the dark for as many as 8 days, which they will do. So there's a huge sort of piece around that. But when people can't see each other, or you think someone can't see you, what we've really found is this amazing warmth of just facial expressions, reactions and engagement with each other, where they open up, tell each other stories and create real sort of friendships. And it's quite emotional. There's fear, there's a huge amount of humour. I think at its heart, actually, it is very, very funny. Which we didn't expect. It is way funnier than we expected, but also it's really quite emotional. It's brilliant. I'm pretty addicted to it, actually. I love it.
Who would know that sensory deprivation could be so entertaining and revealing, I think. And as you say, it is really funny because you've got Gaza in there, you've got Chris Eubank, Nicola Adams, you've got an amazing range of celebs as well. We'll put a clip in the episode description so you can have a look at the show. You touched on technology a little while ago. I'm really interested to just press you a bit on FAST and AVOD and understand where you're going as a business at ITV Studios in this area, because, everybody's talking about the Fast and Global Summit here today. Seems to be the buzzword of the market. Tell us what moves you're making in this area.
Yep, I think it's important to be in the space for sure, and it's one of the fastest growing new areas and new revenue models for our business. I think there's some really interesting dynamics about Fast and AVOD as well. It's an extension of the ecosystem of long form and short form programming that we license into, linear, non-linear, through pay, free. And I think what we're finding is, particularly with 90,000 hours of content in our catalogue, is how do you bring that to audiences? And we've relied on a B2B market forever, really, up until now. And Fast and AVOD is enabling us to publish content ourselves and go in this sort of B2C direction. So we are unearthing huge volumes of content, Hell's Kitchen episodes and running fast channels, which we've launched in various markets now. Come Dine with Me. We've got various channels that we've launched around our older catalogue on the non-scripted side, so Our Life, Our Worlds, Our History. We have over 100 million subscribers to The Voice YouTube channel. So I think, we can now go out and reach audiences, monetize content in a different way, and that's got to be an exciting position for distribution businesses that have sat more as a B2B business. And I think it brings us far closer to the audiences and data. And we've relied on third parties to give us that data. And for the last few years, that's been harder because the streamers don't share that information. So we've lost sight of how our content is connecting with audiences. But as we move closer in a fast AVOD world, we're starting to learn a lot and can really see the demographics, the times, how long, all sorts of usage data that I think ultimately we hope can influence more of our business decisions going forward.
And this is about putting IP and content right at the centre of a digital ecosystem, isn't it? It's something that Evan Shapiro touched on in his keynote a couple of days ago, which was all about how does your IP and how does your brand sit amongst all of this, because it's about the attention economy. And you mentioned Fortnite, obviously huge viewing figures on Fortnite and lots of different platforms, Twitch. They're all competing for attention of the viewer. And it's about developing strategies to address all of those wherever people are viewing content.
Absolutely. I think ecosystem's the right word. And, that makes that world more complicated again. But I think we've been saying that for a while now in distribution with windowing and all those sorts of things. And this is another extension to that. And it's becoming more meaningful from a revenue perspective, because bear in mind, it's still small in comparison to a lot of our other business, but we are starting to find that we can generate fees on content in Fast and AVOD now that does exceed some of the fees we were licensing things for before. So I think we're starting to see small indications of just how meaningful, that growth area is. But it is an ecosystem, and even when you add in layering of exclusivity and things like that on top of it, and I think Evan talked a little bit about, where exclusivity might come into Fast and AVOD channels, and at the moment it is very much a non-exclusive world. So I think we've got an evolution to come in that space.
And presumably that's going to be original content launching on Fast. I mean, do you see that? Obviously, we know that the US, and this is something I've touched on with Shaun Keeble from Banijay Rights and also Cedric from Rakuten. We talked about that earlier in the show about producers will want to know when is the opportunity going to be coming in Fast for original commissions.
They do. And I think I would love it to come sooner rather than later. And I think that some markets have got a big enough advertising business that can start to sustain production costs. They're low, but I think we will get there. And I think that's where this sort of B2C business is interesting, because when we can look at the advertising revenue around the content as well, and normally a Samsung or whoever may well sell that inventory, but if there's an ability to own more of that inventory yourself, take control of your destiny a bit more, look at what brand partnerships we can create, and look at how we can use that shelf space, I think there's lots of exciting things to come.
Thank you for spending some time with us on TellyCast this week. It's always great to speak to you, and congratulations again on your new role.
Thank you, and my pleasure.
So to wrap up our MIPTV special show, I'm here with Lucy Smith from RX Global, of course. Lucy, how are you?
I am very well. Very tired, but very well. Thank you, Justin. How are you?
And well, I'm great. The sun's shining. It's been beautiful weather all week. You know, it's not always like this, but when it does come out, there aren't many better places, are there?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been an amazing buzz, and I'm hearing a lot of people talking about FOMO when they're posting all of their socials about what's been going on here. Yeah. And in the sunshine, which helps. I mean, that's the bliss of being in Cannes and giving that unique experience.
So we always do this every market. It'd be good to know the numbers, know what have been the highlights, what's worked really, really well. You know, give people who haven't been a bit of an insight into this week at MIPTV.
Oh, okay. We'll be kind of announcing the final numbers tomorrow, but we do, I mean, I'll give you a first sort of heads up. We're likely to be at 1,000 people more than last year, physically here in Cannes, which obviously, I think for a second year, having just relaunched after a long break and a reformatting, is a pretty good and vibrant market ahead of us. So we've been getting some great feedback. I think the importance of having all of the territories back. So we've ended up with 86 different countries here. And that, I think, is something that we really do get a lot of great conversations just about how important it is to discover the new content coming out of the different territories. I think I was hearing London screenings recently, the big two formats that were being talked about. I think one was from Holland and one from Belgium. They're not all coming from necessarily sort of the UK and the US anymore. So I think, the importance of that global presence is there.
And we saw a lot of Asian companies with stands, and also Turkey. A lot of Turkish companies seem to have quite a high presence this year.
Yeah, it's been wonderful to welcome all of our Turkish distributors and many producers back. They weren't present at MIPTV last year due to COVID. They're all back in a big way, and we kind of, the overall result kind of confirms and reaffirms the position of MIPTV as the second biggest international content market in the world after the big brother, sister, whatever you want to call it, of MIPCOM.
And Fast and Global Summit was debuted here earlier today. That seemed to be standing room only. That was obviously a good piece of programming from your team there.
Yeah, no, exactly. We got on that pretty quickly. We did something very small at MIPCOM, but we had big ambitions to bring in a lot of companies and new companies to talk about Fast. It was effectively standing room only. We built out new space in the -1, our new Boulevard space, which has been extremely successful, I have to say. I mean, I was just reading, unfortunately, I don't get to sit through and learn all of it, but I was reading, they released the new top 10 countries in terms of Fast, and the fastest growing, newest of those territories, Australia. So, I mean, a lot of news coming out of it. That was really good.
And you mentioned MIPCOM. Can you give us any sort of tantalising snippets about MIPCOM? Anything we can talk about right now?
Yeah, sure. MIPCOM Cannes is the mother of all entertainment content markets, as we have really started talking about it. It's all of the major sort of big studios and production companies and distributors are already, most of them are signed up. We'll have a lot of big sort of tents and presents outside, as we did last year, but probably a little more. We actually will be opening up the new premium exhibition space and moving Producers Hub that we opened at MIPCOM onto the beach, so that we can use that space for some more exhibiting companies, just because we just literally don't have enough. We don't have enough space for everyone otherwise. And the fact of, we've all been hearing here a lot about the fact that there's more of the third-party content deals are back as a big topic, and we heard that whether it would be on stage from people like Anna Marsh at Studio Canal or Evan Shapiro or Ruth Berry. I mean, it's, everyone's talking about that. It's really important. We will also actually do Fast and Global, let's call it MIPCOM edition, and do a lot more, because we really could not cater to the demand, frankly, for everyone asking about wanting to be involved in the Fast program and get involved in sponsoring stuff. So we'll be extending that.
And that's a new audience, isn't it, essentially, for MIPTV and for MIPCOM, who perhaps... I think we've seen Fast operators over the past few years, but the numbers now are just, seem to have skyrocketed.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot of new actors. There's also a lot of the, distributors who also have a lot of catalogue that they want to be launching Fast channels with. So we have a mix of kind of usual suspects, let's say, but where they've all got people heading up their Fast initiatives, and then a lot of great companies involved, like, Amagi and Whirl and Otera and and many others who, some of them are new. I mean, we saw a tent on the outside of the Palais just last MIPCOM was Samsung TV Plus, and the whole, conversations. Again, here, Evan Shapiro, who's been an absolute blast while we've been here, because he's really been rallying the cry not to be only on about
challenging the industry.
Oh, thank you. Yes, challenging the industry to say it's not only about linear versus streaming. It's really about also connected TV, and it's going to be hugely important to talk about that in a bigger way. And I think that the connected TV players are going to become more important to us as well.
All right, fantastic. Well, we look forward to that. Lucy, I know you're being dragged away right now. You've got a back-to-back schedule. Thanks for spending the time with us. We'll see you at MIPCOM.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And I look forward to giving you a MIPCOM preview whenever, month out, couple of weeks out. We will see. But lovely to see you, Justin.
Great. We'll speak to you then. Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you.
Well, that's about it from me for another week.
TellyCast was edited by Ian Chambers and recorded in Cannes. Next week's guest is Roku's Tom Price, so be sure to tune in for that. Until then, stay safe.